And as we head into September, it is a time of the year that are the high holy days for those who practice Judaism. And we're pleased to be joined by one of our local rabbis here in the greater West Bloomfield area, Rabbi Jennifer Kaluzny, who is from Temple Israel of West Bloomfield. Rabbi, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. For those that maybe aren't Jewish or aren't familiar with Judaism enough to know what the high holy days are, can you explain for us what this time of the year is and why it's important to the Jewish faith?
Sure, absolutely. So we are about to have our Jewish New Year. In Hebrew, it's Rosh Hashanah. And that is actually coinciding with Labor Day this year. Our holidays kind of travel a little bit around because they follow a lunar calendar. So this is really early for Rosh Hashanah to land. But we celebrate Rosh Hashanah as a time of rebirth and renewal, a time to kind of clean the slate and look forward with hope and with optimism to what is to come. And so it's a very jubilant celebration. And then 10 days later, we celebrate Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is our Day of Atonement, and it's a very solemn occasion. It's one of the times of year when there is a 25-hour fast. So no drinking water, no eating food. There are a couple other restrictions. And it is a time when we're supposed to do a lot of introspection and ask ourselves kind of where we missed the mark in the year before, ask ourselves if we have hurt somebody. And if we have hurt somebody, we must go to that person and seek their forgiveness. It's also a time to kind of communicate with God and see how that relationship is. And if we have done something that kind of goes against the either Jewish law or the moral code that we all try to aspire to live to, it's another time that we can ask for forgiveness and aspire to do better.
Rabbi Jennifer Kaluzny with us from the Temple Israel of West Bloomfield, joining us today on the MegaCast. And as we've gone through the pandemic, have you noticed that people, while they've had a lot of extra time to reflect outside of the high holy days in the Jewish faith, that they have turned more toward religious institutions and toward their faith as we've gone on over time and faced numerous different and varying challenges due to COVID-19 and the situations thereof?
I think so. You know, at the beginning of quarantine, we had so many families telling us that if they were looking for a silver lining, one of them was that for the first time, they were really celebrating Shabbat, our Sabbath, which comes in on Friday night as a family. They were saying the blessings together. They were sitting down and having dinner. And we always stream our Shabbat services. They were sitting and watching services together, and they knew that their families and friends in other houses were doing the same. We have had so many people tell us that they felt comforted by our constant presence, either through services or through the multitudes of programs that we offered throughout the pandemic and that we still offer. We're blessed at Temple Israel to have many tents. We're just down the street from you guys, so you can drive down and see what we've got going over there. And we've been taking advantage of being able to be outside. But people have said that not only has their Temple Israel community given them a lot of hope and a lot of actually like courage to keep going, but also turning to Judaism, turning to our faith, which is joy-based and happiness-based and hope-based.
So you mentioned that you have the outdoor tents that you're having. Also, I know you also have those in-person services that are somewhat close to normal from before the pandemic are starting to come back. What are the availabilities for services, both in person and virtual? What options do you have provided for people that want to either join your congregation or engage with your congregation during the pandemic based on their levels of comfort and their vaccination status and so on?
Sure. So we are having our Shabbat services under our pavilion at 7 p.m. on Friday nights. All are welcome. We actually have been requesting that people wear masks even outside. Some people wear their masks until they're seated, and then they take them off. That might change for our high holidays, because even though we're trying to social distance, we're very blessed and we have a lot of people who want to come. But we are taking those measures. We understand that sadly the Delta variant is even more contagious, and being that it's airborne, we want to make sure that anyone coming to worship with us is safe and feels safe. And so for any program we have at Temple Israel, any service that we have even outside, we are taking those mitigation measures.
We're joined by Rabbi Jennifer Kaluzny from the Temple Israel of West Bloomfield. And circling back, Rabbi, to the High Holy Days, you mentioned that on one end of the High Holy Days, you have a moment of jubilation and celebration and the cleaning of the slate. And on the other end, it is reflection and consideration. How much more intense is that, so to speak, in terms of your congregation, do you find, because of the times that we're in and because people have had so much extra time to reflect and to consider their existence, their life, their relationships, their place in the world? Do you believe that this year, especially as we're starting to slowly but surely come out of the pandemic, that those emotions, those feelings, and those experiences that come with the holy days are going to be even more intense this year than ever before?
I think so, because I think that, like you said, the time that people had to reflect upon what's important to them, what's necessary in their life, and what they can do without has become more and more obvious. And so a lot of people have realized that connection to community, connection to family, connection to their congregation is something that they want central in their lives. And a lot of people have said to us that they realized they were busy, like super busy, with a lot of things that didn't fulfill them. They also talked about reconnecting with friends and family in ways they hadn't before because they just never took the time to reach out. So I think that self-improvement is something that's important to us all year round, but the feelings of wanting to celebrate and also wanting to improve ourselves so as to improve the rest of the world are amplified. For Jews, the concept of tikkun olam, repairing the world through social justice, both in your community and beyond, is just foundational. And I think that anything our community can do to perform acts of tikkun olam have become even more magnified and even more important as people try to make it through this pandemic that has, I think, lasted longer in this level of intensity than most of us expected.
We're joined by Jennifer Kaluzny. She's a rabbi over at Temple Israel of West Bloomfield. And as we approach those high holy days, and you mentioned this pillar of Judaism, tikkun olam, as we get closer to those days, and we've been reflecting, how do people in the Jewish faith, and at the very least in your congregation, focus on tikkun olam in the community and in the greater area as we get into this time of the year and put that practice and put that pillar to action?
Sure. So every year between Rosh Hashanah, our New Year, and Yom Kippur, our Day of Atonement, we have people do a food collection, and we as a congregation end up donating hundreds and hundreds of pounds of food to Yad Ezra, which is the kosher food bank in our community. All of our bar and bat mitzvah kids, the ones who are 13 and are about to have their bar bat mitzvah ceremony, all do mitzvah projects. And I've had kids do incredible things, everything from they've been collecting cans and they've been cleaning up people's yards and they've been doing all these different projects to raise money, to animal shelters, to help buy flowers for senior assisted living facilities. We've realized that it's a lot of times the one-on-one interactions that make so much of a difference, making sure someone is fed, making sure someone is thought about and cared about. And we have impressed upon our community and given them opportunities to be those contributors and to make those contributions. And that will last because it is a pillar, it is a foundation of everything we do that will last far beyond the pandemic.
We're joined by Rabbi Jennifer Kaluzny today on the MegaCast. She is the rabbi at Temple Israel of West Bloomfield. And Rabbi, as we've started to have people emerge from the isolation of the pandemic, and we've seen our congregations of faith and across all religions come back together in person, do you find that your congregation over at Temple Israel is more close than ever before, or finds that part of their life to be, and that community in their life to be even more important than ever before, knowing what we've lost over the course of the pandemic?
Yes, I think so. We've had people come back, and even just when they walk into the building or they look at our sanctuary, they tell us that it is such a moving experience just to be in the space, that it's comforting, that they do feel like a sense of returning home. It gives them comfort to know that our kids are in the nursery and they're in camp and they're playing and they're enjoying, that the teens are returning to do projects and programming. And I think that sometimes it's just one of those things, of course, in life when things get busy that we take for granted that will always be there. And Temple Israel will always be there. But I think we are finding that more and more people do want to become involved because they realized how much the place, the people, the community truly means to them, and how big our congregation and our community, how important it is in their lives.
We're joined by Jennifer Kaluzny. She is the rabbi over at Temple Israel of West Bloomfield. And Rabbi, just another few minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. Any other upcoming events at Temple Israel that you'd like to speak about, or anything interesting or important for our audience to know at this time?
I mean, there's a ton of interesting and important things going on at Temple Israel all the time.
Of course.
You can go to temple-israel.org and check out what we're doing. One thing I'm really excited about and super proud of is that myself and Cantor Neil Michaels have been working with the DMO, the Detroit Medical Orchestra, which is comprised of physicians and nurses and healthcare professionals who are also musicians. And we have 25-piece orchestra coming this Sunday to our pavilion, and we're doing a healing symphony. We're going to have some responsive readings, some singing, and absolutely beautiful music, because we feel that people really need to come together and to experience the music and the prayer and bring them both together for some healing. So if you're interested in that, you can register on our website or call Temple Israel. And that's something we're really, really proud of. And I'm excited for on Sunday night.
Well, yeah, that sounds like a really interesting event, really fun and good for the soul as well. We appreciate it. Rabbi Jennifer Kaluzny from Temple Israel, West Bloomfield. Thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.